I am my best creation. But I don't always like myself. I am my best creation. My parents gave birth to me, it is true. It is equally true they didn't create me. I came from them, taking this from my mother, that from my father, then from my sister and my brother, my best friend, my lover, lovers. And soon, I became me. I wear many hats, I create many things, some even bring me jubilation, but I remain my best creation. No boss rules over me. I am CEO and cleaner of what you see, and yet, I don't always like me. I am my best creation. You are your best creation. Do you always like yourself? No, this is a real question. I want a show of hands of the people who actually like themselves. Do you always like yourself? Wow, who are you? Anyway, but we're not talking about you. We are talking about me, my favorite subject. But unlike Karina in JWM, I am not my favorite person. Now, isn't that a strange thing? So I did a little bit of chick, and I came up with 7 things of how I got here and what I'm going to do to fix it. So number 1, how we become who we are. Now some would say I had a very idyllic childhood, surrounded by love and animals. Well, actually a lot of animals. You know, there was this rabbit that was going to be killed at some canteen that my aunt worked at, so she brought it home. Then there was another rabbit, and soon there were 220. The same story with the jungly dogs. And then there was Memna, this little lamb that my vegetarian mother rescued from the butcher. And soon our little garden, it had a little greenhouse, morphed into a menagerie. And the neighborhood kids would look through the railings in the gate and say, "Dekho, dekho, pagal chidiya ghar. Look, mad zoo." These labels that were thrown at us out of jealousy or pure childishness became the first defining yet completely organic components in the creation of me. Little crazy, little different, non-conformist, still continue to define me. So the question arises, did I consciously pick and choose these labels and imbibe them into my creation? At some level, I think yes. Aren't we all doing it? All the time. From whatever the world is throwing at us, we are creating ourselves, good, bad, funny. But this is the point, my friends. We can create versions of ourselves consciously. Well, not always. And this is when circumstances create us. So at 17, I went to the UK to study, and I was a confident, popular Indian child. And after a few days of culture shock, bad dormitory food, and really missing home, another feeling started to take over me. I started to feel invisible. I didn't know what I was doing wrong. I was like, why is nobody looking at me? Till I began to realize that in India, I had gotten so used to everyone always looking at everyone openly that when someone was merely minding their own business, I felt invisible. And it will help to know that I'm a middle child. So by definition, an attention seeker. So obviously I did not like feeling invisible. And this is a feeling that I will come back to later in the talk. So I went from being hockey captain to not qualifying for any university team, from being national equestrian champion to riding for the B team, from playing leads in plays to barely qualifying for the chorus, and on and on and on it went like this. This was purely the environment and the circumstances creating a version of me that I didn't like. So I forced myself to remember who I was and who I wanted to be, and what were the tools at my disposal. I had my acting skill, I had my oratory skills, and I had a newfound feeling of being left out. So I used it to be elected the Black Rights Officer at the Student Union. I mean, back then, it didn't occur to anyone to ask why a brown girl was being a Black Rights Officer. but that's how it was. So we protested, we drank warm beers, and I reconciled slowly to playing in the chorus, remembering that there are no small parts, only small actors. And this is the moral of the story. To regain control, the only way is to embrace your circumstances and to make them work for you. Which brings me to point 3. Nothing is stopping you but you. Also known as you only need one yes. So I graduate, I come back, I come from a media family, I'm fairly academic, so I decide and instantly proclaim that I am going to be a broadcasting journalist. But in secret, what I really crave is just visibility. And this is where I am amazed and marvel at the audacity I had to create my dream version. At 22, I was acting and producing in a daily women's show on Doordarshan, the national broadcaster. Let's call it the Audacity of Youth. But as I'm getting older, I am realizing and more convinced that it needn't be the purview of the youth. We can willfully create any version of ourselves at any point. The circumstances may favor us, they may not. It might be easy, most likely it won't. But if a farmer's son from a little village in Bihar can pick up his dreams, put them in a potli, come to Mumbai and become Pankaj Tripathi, only the greatest actor of our decade, or a down-and-out single mother can write the most magical wizard series, then what is stopping you? Only you. But back to me. So, after about 2 years of doing my TV show and some 272 episodes, I had burnout and I wanted to go to drama school. All my friends and family, they dissuaded me. They said, at 24, you're too old to be starting out right now. You'll be a buddhi. And they were not wrong. I was the oldest person at RADA. But RADA had offered me a place. Yes, the impossible to get into Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts in London had offered me a place, and this was all the yes that I needed. Nothing was going to stop me. Not even me, definitely not my age. Which brings me to my next point: dilute your creation at your own risk. So even before I graduated from RADA, I debuted in my first film called Everybody Says I'm Fine. Now I think about 5 people have seen it, and today it's become this cult classic that no one can find on the internet legally. Rahul Bose, are you listening? Maybe you should do something about that. So I was living the dream, but what I really wanted was my own dream sequence. My slow motion Bollywood dream sequence. And here I was doing champagne films, you know, films that go to the festivals, people drink a lot of champagnes, but no one watches them. I didn't want to be a crossover actor, I wanted to cross over. Retrospective note to self. When in the business of creating self, play to your strengths. Because what is life? It is just a series of games. You begin, you play, you win some, you lose some, and then it ends. So yes, of course, play to have fun, but also play to win. Therefore, choose the game you're good at. Obviously, I was not saying any of these things to myself back then, which is why I was totally unaware of this egregiously needy person I had turned into until I sat down on my couch. Yes, the infamous red fur couch from my chat show. I noticed that my voice, my pitch, it was different. I sounded more me. I was joking and being cheeky with these same filmmakers that I had been talking to years for as a watered down version of me. I had created a people-pleasing, eyelid bashing, eyelash battling, silicone thrusting avatar of me because I thought that'll get me noticed and into my dream sequence. But by diluting myself, I just made it harder to be noticed. The minute I was me, they became them. Someone who was more approachable, someone who could be my friend, These same filmmakers, and this is the point, my friends, that everyone is constantly inventing and reinventing themselves, room to room, people to people. I'm doing it right now. You're doing it right now too. If we do this with awareness, with intent, it becomes a power at our disposal. When we do it unknowingly or for other people, it only depletes us. This brings me to my next point. Making reinvention easy, or MRE. Now, I know a thing about reinvention and creating your identity from scratch. I've lived in Japan, I now live in Paris. I have to constantly reinvent myself, and the recurring question is always, who gets to be an insider? Who gets to be an outsider? Are you Parisian enough? Are you Japanese enough? In fact, this is the main theme of the book that I have written, Clearly Invisible in Paris. Because reinvention is scary. But it can also be quite simple. So I arrived in Paris. I didn't speak much French, so I wanted something creative to do. Acting was obviously not an option if I don't speak French. So I decided I'm going to be a producer. And then I went into panic mode of, oh God, what do I produce? How do I produce? I don't know anyone here. I don't know anything about production. Till a simple conversation with my dear friend Mo set me on the right path. He said, what does a producer need? A producer needs a story. You live in Paris. Find an idea. That's your first job. So I walked around Paris with my newly found producer eyes and ears, and I kid you not, stories came to me from all over. I guess because I was open, I was ready, but also I was not scared of reinventing myself. And that first step that you take is the scariest. But then after that first step, it propels you to take the next and the next and the next and the next till a path opens up for you. And that is the point, my friends. One shouldn't fear talking to or seeking help from the people who will empower your reinvention, and cull the people and the things, including your own voice, that are going to discourage you. Because there is no shame in asking for help. It just takes a little bit of courage. And if you're specific and have done your research about what you need from someone, in most cases, they will happily oblige, because who doesn't want good karma? Which brings me to the next point, letting go. And this is about the invisibility that I was talking to you about earlier. Now, as I'm getting older, well, not older, but older than what I was, but as an older woman, I'm becoming less and less visible. For better or for worse, the physical appearance, or my physical appearance, has played a major part in who I am. And that's becoming a smaller and smaller component of my life. And I have to start pushing other facets to the forefront to become more and more visible. I am sure there are a lot of women out here who understand what I'm talking about. Now, the minute you get your head around this, it can actually be liberating. Because youth is ephemeral, but talent, it grows. So I'm learning little by little to let go parts of me that I have created. This brings me to my final point, creating with intent. Being mean, being a bully, being rude is never cool. Be kind, be kind, be kind. But this one has been a hard lesson for me, and I'd like to share it. The post-pandemic period has been creatively a very satisfying period. You know, I have produced and acted in plays, I've fleshed out miniseries, I've written a book, I've done all kinds of other things, but I've not always done it mindfully. Let me give you an example. I wrote my first play in Paris called Mummy's Dead, Long Live Mummy at the beginning of this year, and I took it from 0, which is like the first word, to 100. Because like putting on an English play in Paris successfully, that's a definite 100, right? But I felt like minus 200. Because but this is not something to clap about. I felt like minus 200, you know? And this was because I was so focused on getting the show on deadlines, on sponsorship, that I just bulldoze through the process, not caring about anyone's feelings or about the casualties this way or that way. I mean, suffice it to say that I was overstretched, badly behaved, short-tempered, and the biggest casualty in the end was how empty my best creation me felt. The payoff didn't add up. The only thing we have control over is ourselves. And I lost control. I lost my grace, and it made me feel all, ooh. So from now on, whether I create outside of me or whether I create me, I will be more mindful. I will create with intent. I am my greatest creation, and I'm learning to love myself.